Hi students, today we are going to discuss about two more animal tissues. One is your connective tissue and the another one is your muscular tissue. Okay. So we have already discussed two. What were they in the last class? One was neural tissue and other one was your epithelial tissue. So the first one what we are going to discuss is your connective tissue. As the name suggests, connective tissue. What do you mean by connective? Connective is the term which is used for referring parts which are helping in connecting one part of our body with that of the another here. Connection between the two or three or more things. Okay. So connective tissue are all the tissues which are playing a major role in connecting different parts of our body with one another. Thereby they are coordinating in the actions of different system of our body. Okay. So this connective tissue is divided into, when you are going for classification, it is divided into three types. So what are the three types of connective tissue? One is your loose connective tissue, number two is your dense connective tissue, and number three is your specialized connective tissue. So what are the three different types of connective tissue? You are having loose connective tissue, you are having dense connective tissue, and you have specialized connective tissue, right? Now, this loose connective tissue, as the name suggests, the cells are loosely packed. In the dense connective tissue, the cells are tightly packed, right? And another one is your specialized tissue. Here they have some specialization, carrying out some special role or special functions in our body, okay? Now this loose connective tissue is of two types. What are they? One is alveolar and another one is adipose. Areolar and adipose. The second dense connective tissue is of two types. What are they? One is regular and another one is irregular. Regular and irregular. Under regular you are having two more types. What are they? One is tendons and another one is ligaments. Okay. So connective tissue is divided into three types. Under that loose, under that what and all is falling? You are having areolar connective tissue and adipose tissue. Under dense, it is again divided into two. One is regular and another one is irregular, right? And this regular, when you see, they are of two types. What are they? One is tendons and another one is ligaments. Specialized connective tissues are of different types. Like you have blood is a specialized connective tissue, bone is a specialized connective tissue, cartilage is a specialized connective tissue, lymph can also be added, okay. So these are the different types of connective tissue. Now we will be learning one by one, okay. The same thing has been given. Connective tissue you can divide it into three types: loose connective tissue, dense connective tissue, specialized connective tissue. Loose connective tissue is of two types: areolar tissue and adipose tissue. Dense connective tissue is of two types: dense regular and dense irregular, right? And this dense regular only you can find what? The tendons and the ligaments, okay. And when you are seeing specialized connective tissue, you are having cartilage, bones and blood, right? This is the diagram which is given in your text. Now moving on to the first one. What is the first one? The first one is your loose connective tissue. Under that alveolar tissue, okay. So the first one is your loose connective tissue, under that areolar tissue. Now what is the characteristic feature of this areolar tissue? Okay, so areolar tissue is that it is present. So this areolar tissue as well as your adipose tissue, what is the main function of these tissue is that they are helping as, they are acting as a packaging material, okay. So what do you mean by this packaging material? Like for example, if I tell you an example, you will get it clear. You are ordering something via Amazon, okay. So they are giving the gift, like for example, you have ordered for cup and saucer, okay. So they are cup and saucer, just like that it cannot come, isn't it? So it has to be packed in a box. In the box, if you are seeing the cup as well as the saucers, when you see, they are being packed, but when they are being packed, in between you can find the thermocol like or somewhat substances which are having what? Absorbing property. So like thermocol or like cotton, okay. So like that stuffings will be there, okay. The or polythene covers which are somewhat harder in nature, right. So these things will be there. Why it is there? Because the cup and saucer should not touch with each other, because when they are moving from one place to another while transportation, what can happen? It can easily break, right. So the substances, means the materials, that is the cup as well as the saucer, has to be kept intact in its position, and it has to be packed as such that they are not touching with one another and it's being safe. Okay. The same thing is being done by these two tissues. In our body, there are different types of cells, different types of cells which are functioning in a different manner. So all these cells, when you are seeing, all these cells has to be having its own position. They should not interact with one another. In case if where there is interaction needed, there they need to interact, but everywhere the interaction should not take place, then the function will not be carried out. Okay. So there should be separation between different organs. Some cells should separate between different organs. So all these separations, when you are seeing, it's been carried out by this tissue. The name of the tissue is what? The loose connective tissue. It is of two types. One is areolar and another one is adipose. Okay. So areolar tissue. What is areolar tissue? It is present beneath the skin. Where you can find just beneath your skin, this areolar tissue is present. And this areolar tissue, if you are looking into the structure of this areolar tissue, you can find this is the structure of the areolar tissue. Okay. So this is just a structure of the areolar tissue, in which you have cells like fibroblast, collagen fiber, macrophages and mast cells. So this is the structure of mast cell. This is macrophages. What is the function of this macrophages, mast cells? If you see, they are acting like the functions of WBZ. What is the function of WBZ? They are helping in carrying out defense mechanism. If any germs enter our body, what these mast cell macrophages do is that they try to attack the germ and kill the germ, thereby preventing us from getting attacked with diseases, right. So macrophages and mast cells, what they do is that they are acting as defense mechanism, and this fiber cells, that fibroblast, collagen fibers and all, when you are seeing, they are playing a major role in what? Acting as a packaging substances, these fibers. So all these, like thermocols, what they do, they are acting like what? The packaging material. Here the fibrous cells, that is fibroblast, collagen fibers, are acting as what? That are acting as packaging material, right. Now moving on to the next. So areolar tissue, I hope that it is clear, present beneath the skin. It is a supportive framework for epithelium. Yeah, epithelium is attached to this areolar tissue. And what does it contain? It contains what? Fibroblast, macrophages, mast cells. Okay. So these are fibers which are helping as packaging material. Another one is your adipose tissue. Adipose tissue, as again, it is also present beneath the skin, right. And this adipose tissue, when you are seeing here, the cells, the fiber cells as well as the cells, when you are seeing, they are filled with fats. What they are filled with? Fats. So the one who is fat is having much amount of what? The adipose tissue cells are innumerable in number, and they are having what? Fat in it, means oil in it. So what is the function of this adipose tissue? Again, they are also acting like packaging material, right, as well as they are helping in providing insulation. Insulation means what? You know what is insulation, right. The outside temperature should not get affected, the inner temperature. That's why you can find they are acting as insulators. They will not allow the body heat to pass out fastly, as well as they will not allow the heat from outside to get into my body fastly. So they are acting like insulators which are present beneath the skin. So hope it's clear. Alveolar tissue and adipose tissue, they act as packaging materials. They are present beneath the skin, and they contains different types of cells, which can be fibers, which can be mast cells, which can be macrophages, as well as they have cells which are filled with fats. Okay. So these are regarding your alveolar tissue, that is the loose connective tissue. So the first is over, loose connective tissue. Then next we are moving on to which one? The dense connective tissue. As the name suggests, what do you mean by the term dense? Dense means it's hard, okay. You cannot find loose arrangement. They are compactly arranged. Like if you look into the diagram, you can see like here, they are compactly arranged, okay. So they are arranged intact. In between also you can find the colored part and all, there are cells are present, okay. So dense connective tissue is of two types. One is regular and another one is irregular. I told you, right? So what is regular and irregular? Regular means the pattern, how they are arranged. You can see the fibers are regular, they are arranged in a regular manner, then we call it as what? The dense regular. And when these fibers become arranged in an irregular manner, like for example, you can find this fiber is moving like this and the other fiber is moving like this, right? Another fiber is moving like this, other one is going like this. So here the arrangement is not in a particular order, here it is irregularly distributed, the fibers. Then we call it as what? Dense irregular, right? Now this dense regular, when you are seeing, I told you they are divided into two. What are they? One is your tendons and another one is your ligaments. So the fibrous cells are somewhat like this only, okay? So these tendons and ligaments, when you see, tendons are made up of a different fiber and ligaments are made up of different set of fibers. So what is these fibers made up of? They are made up of some sort of proteins. What they are made up of? They are made up of some sort of proteins. And what is the function of this tendons? What does tendon do? The tendon is a set of connective tissue which connects your muscles to the bones. So your bone is connected with the muscles. If the muscles contract only, your bone will move, isn't it? So if I am telling you to get up, you are getting up. How you are getting up? Whether your bone is moving just like that? No, your muscles are contracting. When your muscles are contracting, then what will happen? The bones, which is in contact with that of the muscles, they will pull, okay, and the muscles will, the bone will move. So for that, who is responsible for connecting between the bones and the muscles? It's tendons. Who is responsible? Tendons, right? And the second one is your ligaments. So what is ligaments doing? They are connecting bones with bones. So like for example, you see your forearm, okay? In your forearm, you are having what is that? A joint, right? So if you want to stretch your arm as well as get it back, between these two bones, wherever the bones are connected in the joints, where do we say? We call it as joints, isn't it? So in the joints you can find a set of connective tissue present, which we call it as what? Ligaments. So what is this ligaments doing? They are helping in connecting one bone with that of the other. Just imagine if your vertebrae or the backbone is made up of a single bone, if it is not made up of many small bones, whether you can move or means you can bend, it's not possible, right? So there are many joints, and in these joints you can find a set of connective tissue present. What we call it as what? We call them as ligaments, okay? So the ligaments is connecting bones with the bones, thereby helping in a sort of movement, and tendons are connecting muscles to bones, okay? So these are the two different types of dense regular connective tissue. Dense irregular connective tissue is present beneath the skin again, and it is made up of what? Fibroblasts, many fibers. And here what is the difference between the loose and the areolar tissue and the dense irregular connective tissue? Here areolar tissue, the arrangement is very loose, okay? The cells are apart from one another, filled with fluid. But when you are seeing dense irregular, they are compactly arranged, okay? So that is the difference between the loose and the dense connective tissue. Hope it's clear. So we have discussed two connective tissue. One is the loose connective tissue, and in that we discussed about what? Areolar tissue and adipose tissue. Then we discussed about dense connective tissue. In that we discussed about dense irregular and dense regular tissue. Now we are moving on to the specialized tissue. So when you are seeing the specialized tissue, the first tissue what we are going to discuss is cartilage. What we are going to discuss is cartilage, okay? So when you are seeing this cartilage is we usually name it as soft bones, isn't it? So in the ears, you can move the ears, it's much flexible. In the nose, if you are finding tip of the nose, if you are touching and moving, yes, it's flexible, isn't it? So ear joints, as well as between the bones in the vertebral column also, where the ligaments are present, there also you can find what? This cartilage is present. So cartilages are referred to as what? The soft bones, okay? Soft bones because if you see, the ear is not stiff. If it is made up of bone, the ear will stay like that, isn't it? The ear, you can, if I want to scold you or beat you, I can also pinch in your ears, right? So why it is possible? Because the cartilage, it is made up of what? It is made up of cartilage, right? So, this cartilage, when you are seeing, it is made up of cells where it is present in a depression. So, the depression we call it as the lacuna. What do we call them? Lacuna. Inside that only you can find this cartilage cells are present. What is present? The cartilage cells are present. These cartilage cells we call it as chondrocytes. What do we call them? We call them as chondrocytes. Okay. So, cartilage cells are present in a cavity. That cavity is called as lacuna, and inside that there is a matrix. Matrix means a fluid filled cavity. That fluid is called as the matrix, and inside that only what you can find? You can find your chondrocyte cells. Now you see, look into this diagram. You can find this collagen, many fibers are there. So here there is a depression. Inside the depression there is a what is that? Matrix, fluid filled matrix. Inside the matrix you have the cartilaginous cells. The cartilaginous cells are also referred to as what? Chondrocytes. So this is the structure, and they are made up of collagen fibers, and these collagen fibers when you are seeing, they are somewhat flexible in nature, so that the cartilages are somewhat solid, but at the same time they are flexible. Flexible means what? You can move to some extent, you can bend it out. Okay, so that one we call it, use it as what? Pliable. Okay, so in that case it is flexible. What do you mean by that? It is flexible, you can move it very easily. So most of the cartilage in vertebrae, embryos, so in the vertebrae, when you are seeing vertebrae means the bones which are present in the embryo, okay, the infants, when you are seeing, it has been replaced. Okay, so first it will be made up of cartilage only, later it will be replaced by whom? The bones. Okay, it will be converted into bones. So in the beginning, in the embryonic stage, you can find the cartilage is more compared to that of the bones, but later the cartilage are replaced by what? Bones. Okay, so soft bones we call it as what? The cartilage. Hope it's clear. So cartilage contains what? Collagen fibers, fluid filled matrix, wherein you can find the cartilage cells is present. Name of the cells is chondrocytes. Now this is the structure of a bone cell. Okay, the bone cells also, if you are seeing, it is having a cavity. Inside the cavity there is a matrix, but the matrix is solid. Solid means solid, like they are made up of calcium deposits. So it's much harder, right? So, and they have specialized cells. Okay, so you can find the cells like ant, it will be somewhat. Okay, so this sort of cells which are present in the bones, we call it as osteocytes. What do we call them? Osteocytes. Okay, so bones, when you are seeing, they are hard. Non-pliable means what? It is not flexible. Bones are stiff. It's very hard. You cannot bend it. It's much harder. Okay, and they are rich in what? Calcium and collagen fibers, which because of the deposit of this calcium, what it becomes? It becomes very hard and is providing strength to our body. Bone cells are called as what? Osteocytes, are present in the space. I told you a space called as what? Lacuna. So lacuna will be the matrix which is solid filled. Inside that only you can find what is present. The bone cells are present, and in some of the bone cells, when you are seeing, like bone marrow which is present in the vertebra backbone. Okay, so the bone marrow there, in some bones, when you are saying bone marrow is what? The cavity which is present in the bone, we call it as what? The bone marrow. Okay, so the cavity which is present inside the bone, we call it as what? The bone marrow. So if you imagine this is a bone, inside the cavity will be right there, isn't it? So that one we call it as what? The bone marrow. And this bone marrow, when you are seeing, there only you can find the production of red blood cells. Any sort of blood cells are produced. Formation of blood cells are taking place there. Okay, so that is regarding your bones. So what is the difference between bones and cartilage? Bones, when you are seeing, it's hard and not pliable, but when you are seeing the cartilage, it is not that hard, but it is pliable in nature. And calcium salts are present where? In the bone, but it is absent in cartilage. Cartilage, when you are seeing, it is present in some of the regions which we have already discussed, like nose, ears, in between the vertebrae. Okay, so but bones, when you are seeing, it's present, it is forming the main part of what? Our skeletal system, present in most of our parts. Okay, so these are the differences between what? The bones and the cartilage. And the last specialized connective tissue what we are going to discuss is blood. It is a fluid connective tissue. Blood is a fluid, you know. Major composition of blood is what? It is water, isn't it? So major, when you are seeing, they are made up of water. And this fluid connective tissue, blood, when you see in the water part of the blood, we call it as plasma. What do we call them? Plasma. So blood can be divided into the fluid main part, we call it as what? The plasma, and the cellular part, means the blood is also containing cells. The cellular part we call it as corpuscles. What do we call them? We call them as corpuscles. So what are the three different types of corpuscles present in the cell? You can find three different types are your red blood cells, white blood cells and platelets. Okay. Otherwise we call it as erythrocytes, leukocytes and thrombocytes. So the blood is made up of two parts. What are the two parts? One is the fluid. What is that fluid called? It is called as plasma. And another one, what it is made up of? Cellular part, cells, made up of cells. What are the term which we are using for cells? We are using the term corpuscles. Now these corpuscles are of how many types? They are of three types. What are they? Number one is your red blood corpuscles, number two is your white blood corpuscles, and the number three is your platelets, right? So this is regarding the cellular component, and all these functions regarding these red blood cells, you know, they are carrying oxygen, carbon dioxide from one part of my body to another. White blood cells, they are helping in defense, and platelets, they are helping in what? Blood clotting. Okay, whenever there is a cut, so the platelets are playing a major role in clotting of blood. So these are the different functions, and this fluid plasma, when you are seeing through the plasma only, the blood is carrying substances from one part of my body to another, right? So this is regarding your different types of specialized connective tissue. So hope this is clear. So we discussed today about connective tissue. How many types? Three. Loose connective tissue, dense connective tissue, specialized. Loose, how many types? Two. Areolar and adipose. Dense, again two. Regular and irregular. Regular can be of two types. What are they? Tendons and ligaments. Specialized tissue we discussed, bone, cartilage and blood, right? Now we are moving on to the next connective tissue, muscular tissue. Okay, so this muscle tissue, when you look into the diagram of a muscle, they are made up of long cylindrical fibers. What is muscles made up of? They are made up of fibrous cells. Okay, so if you are looking into the structure, they are made up of fibrous cells. Now these fibers, muscle bundle, this is one full bundle of muscles. Okay, these fiber is in turn made up of many fibers. The innermost fiber, we call it as what? We call it as myofibrils. So this is a muscle bundle. It is made up of many another fiber. Again, this is made up of other fiber. Like that, the last fiber will be there now. The last one, the minute one. That one we call it as what? The myofibril. We will be discussing in detail about the structure of the muscular muscle tissue later in the chapter. Okay, locomotion. As of now, you just remember that the muscle tissue is made up of many long cylindrical fibers arranged parallel to one another. All are what? They are parallel to one another. You can find the cells are parallel to one another. Okay, and these fibers are composed of many fine fibrils. What do we call them? Myofibrils. What do we call them? Myofibrils. So myofibrils are combining together, forming another structure, and then only you can find what the muscle bundle is formed. Okay, and these muscles are of three types. How many types of muscles are there? There are three types of muscles. So what are they? One is your skeletal muscle, second is your smooth muscle, and the third one is your cardiac muscle. Okay, so skeletal muscles, otherwise we call it as voluntary muscles. Smooth muscles, we call it as involuntary muscles. And other one is your cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscles, you know, what is the function of this cardiac muscle? These cardiac muscles are present in my heart. So the heart is pumping, the cardiac muscle in the heart is pumping, right? And voluntary muscles, the muscles which are helping in my voluntary activity, means I want to get up, I want to run, I want to sit. So I am doing it under my control. That one we call it as what? The voluntary muscles. That is the skeletal muscles, the muscles that are attached mostly with that of the bones, which is helping out in carrying out my voluntary activities. And another one is what? Your involuntary muscles. What is involuntary? Involuntary means the muscle is not under my control. Like for example, when I am sitting, You can find my digestion is going on, my respiration is going on. Whether I am controlling my digestion, whether I am controlling my respiration, no. It is involuntary, it is taking place inside. There, pumping of the, substances from one place to another. All these are taking place involuntary. You are not controlling it. The lungs are expanding, contracting, muscles are expanding, contracting. You are not aware of, right? So these activities are controlled by a set of muscles. We call it as what? We call them as involuntary muscles. Okay. So these are the three sets of muscles. When you are seeing the diagram, you can easily differentiate between these muscles. The first one is your voluntary muscle. The second one is your involuntary muscle, and the third one is your cardiac muscles. Okay. So voluntary, you see, they are long, cylindrical. They are having striations. Striation means what? Black gap, isn't it? One is dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, like that layers are present. Involuntary muscle, spindle shaped. What is the shape? Spindle shaped, and they are having only one nuclei. Okay. And this is cardiac muscles. They are having shape similar to voluntary, right? But cardiac muscle functions, when you see, whether you can control your heartbeat? No. It is going on uncontrolled, means you are not controlling it. It is involuntary. So function, when you are seeing cardiac muscle, it is like this, okay. But when you are seeing structurally, it will be like this. So function is like involuntary, but structure is like voluntary, okay. So this is regarding what? The three sets of muscles. Difference has been given. Skeletal muscles or voluntary muscles, cylindrical shaped, multinucleate, means what? You can find many number of nucleus present, okay. So that is number 2. Voluntary, I told you, it is under my control, shows striations. Striations means what? Dark, light, like that striations are there, isn't it? So you can find dark, light, line, dark, then pink, again black, pink, like that, okay. And smooth muscle fibers, when you are seeing, they are spindle shaped. What is the shape? Spindle shaped, okay. So this is the shape of a spindle shape. Uninucleate, they contain only one nuclei. Involuntary in nature and non-striated. You cannot find dark, white, dark, but it is not present, isn't it? Cardiac muscles, branched. Branched means what? You can find here how the branching is. So you can find one, the branching is present, isn't it? So this is cardiac muscles. You can find this branching is taking place. Here it is branched, here it is branching, separating apart, isn't it? So branched, uninucleate, but they are uninucleate. Each contain one nucleus, okay. So they are uninucleate. Involuntary means it is not under my control, and it has striations. They seem to have what? Striation means what? Light, dark structure will be present, okay. So with this, the muscle tissue is coming to an end. What are the three types of muscles? Voluntary, involuntary, and your cardiac muscles, right? So voluntary muscles can also be called as what? Skeletal muscles, okay, or striated muscles. Involuntary muscles are called as what? Smooth muscles or unstriated muscles, unstriped muscles, and cardiac muscles are also called as heart muscles, okay. So they are having their differences, which has been sorted out in the form of a table, right? So with this, we are coming to the end of the chapter. Hope so it's clear. Thank you.